Hello, Sagittarius, and welcome back to your extended. So, first thing I want to say is that this Capricorn energy um, is making themselves known. They want to bring you some form of inspiration, is what it's looking like. Um, Obviously, if you have Capricorn in your chart, or if you know a Capricorn, go watch that Capricorn reading because there might be something in there for you. Um, Specifically, though, Capricorn was pulling a book off of a shelf, and just like this book here, and then delivering. Well, they were delivering it. They were opening the book and reading it for themselves. But what's coming through here is that it's like Capricorn now wants to share that story with you. In the Capricorn reading, the specific story that was coming up was The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Um, and it's like Capricorn is wanting to deliver that story to you because it's going to act as some form of inspiration that's going to well, it's like it wants to be a part of your music. It wants to be a part of your music. And obviously it's poetry, so maybe certain lines from that poem could be used. I don't know specifically how you would utilize it. um, but that message really wanted to step in, and so I promised Capricorn that I'd tell you. So all right. The second portion of your reading is, it almost feels like I am kind of like with that message from Capricorn. It feels as though I am also acting as this high priestess for you and giving you some, I don't know. I feel very strange about this because it's like I don't want to influence, like it's purely your creation, right? But there are suggestions, I guess. Suggestions that are coming through the reading. One of which is that story, that book that was being pulled off the shelf, Edgar Allan Poe, The Raven. Another, I guess, suggestion, it's almost like I'm telling you what to add to your music. So obviously you can do that, or you don't have to. Um, yeah, but the first suggestion is to add, it's coming through as harmonics, to add an element of feminine harmonics. It's like add a woman's voice. It's specifically coming through as a woman's voice. Add in to one of these building blocks women's voices. And we were talking about liberation and all that stuff in the in the part one of this reading. So it could literally, that's what I'm saying, it could literally be talking about adding in women's voices, like them singing them in a harmony or whatever, they're all singing together. Or it could be referring to adding in the stories of women, like perhaps if the song has lyrics, um, that their story or their experience, even the emotions that come along with this, with women's lives, like add that into the mix. And it's coming through as the different voices that you put on this track are going to, it's like there's a harmonizing that happens with all of these different voices, which aids in, it's going to aid in this process here, which was referring to the liberation of, well, one, it could be referring to the liberation of women, or it could be referring to the liberation of people from their, from, well, from like this faulty foundation that is acting as a like a parasitic energy that is sucking life, like life essence from the music. Something like that. So, with the addition of these voices, there's a sense of that these voices, these, to add those into the, it's like that's going to be the smoothing element. It's the, it's this side, right? The smooth side versus that choppy side, or the loud and blaring part. It's like if you add, it's almost like use the, I don't, use the women's voices to kind of assist in the transitional part from the choppy bits to the smooth bits. I've never made music in my entire life. I don't know anything about music, but there is so much message here that is coming through about music, and I'm just here to deliver the message. I want it to be, I don't know, I just want it to be very much known that I'm not trying to influence your music, but this is what the suggestions are. It's like there's suggestions. And with them being suggestions, it doesn't have to actually be that way. Like you don't have to actually add it. You can keep it. You can keep your music in this purity, like purely yours, without any external influences. But there's something here about if you are to add these suggestions that, remember how we were talking about how there's an audience that's coming and they're wanting more, they're wanting to see, to hear your sound bites and your music and all of that stuff, and it's actually assisting them in this process of like coming into a more purified state, one that actually like matches your gorgeous energy of, it's like wholeness. It's like it's sifting out all of the things that don't belong to them anymore. It's aiding in their healing process. So if you want to go more in this direction of really aiding in the healing, the restoration of your audience, then it's highly recommended that you add these suggestions. And there's also like a message of that it's going to add to the dynamics of your music, And by doing so, it's going to create, hang on, I'm pulling it out. It's going to create more interest in the musicality. Like, it's going to hold their attention more. Because if you hold their attention more, then this process, this sifting process, it has a longer span to be able to occur. So there's that. All right. So you're adding, hopefully, you're adding the harmonics, the woman's voices, in the transitional parts between the choppy and the smooth bits. And it's so great. It's so beautiful. I wish that you could see it in my mind. It's so gorgeous the way that the movement is. It's stunning. So the other element that is wanting to be added here is coming in this form. So both of the justice, both of them came out. They both have very significantly different meanings. This first one here comes with a meaning of absolutes or black and white. So, we were talking about women's voices. So going into the meaning of this card, this is referring to, like, perhaps adding in like discussion of racial tensions. I'm telling themes, like I'm it's like add this theme to the music. It's coming, this card has a black and white, but here in your reading specifically, it's referring to like differences in color or racial tensions, racial lines, that type of liberation. There's a specific word for this, like civil rights. That's what it's referring to. Civil rights. There's a lot of really gorgeous, like liberal energy in your spread today. So this is one of the elements as well, adding this in. And it's also referring to the polarity between two like two sides. It's really coming up as like almost political, like especially with the liberal sense. There's two different sides, so there's so many different themes that are being brought up in your music. We have women's rights or women's voices. We have civil rights, and there's also an element of like a political ties, the different polarities that exist like in our society. It's even, especially even with both of the justice cards here, it's also referring to, it's like as I keep, there's more and more coming, so it's like it's just building upon itself. There's another element here of really honing in on two different forms of justice, like demonstrating that perhaps maybe there are some in our society that receive a certain type of justice, like this one here, where, so this Justice card comes with a message of a lot of flexibility, actually. It's a grayscale, right? So it's referring to that perhaps maybe, this is kind of just an example, that if two different people that come from perhaps maybe like different circumstances or cut from different cloths, which was a reference to a Piscean reading, the most recent one. It's that depending on who you are in society determines your judgment or the punishment that you would be receiving if you had committed a crime, something like that. It's talking about the disparity between like rulings, court rulings. That was a lot. um, Specifically, it's kind of referring to like white collar crimes versus, I don't know, the other side of that, and how those that those that are more well off tend to have it easier than, I don't know why I'm seeing this, than those who, okay, there's a specific imagery that's coming up in my mind, and it is of those that commit white collar crimes, like big, like, like financial stuff, type of stuff. uh their punishments, if you will, are less, I don't know, it's like they're I'm really trying to find my words, but all I'm receiving is a bunch of pictures. So um but the other side of it is that someone who, what I'm seeing is like someone who would be like stealing food out of a grocery store to feed their family because they're less fortunate, or they're of a lower class, lower bracket, would receive a punishment that far exceeds what they had done. There's not a lot of understanding. So this form of justice often refers to like the black and white. This is more of a grayscale, and so it's demonstrating the differences between that energy. And now with the secondary message that's coming along with this is that in the music, obviously, add this part to it, but also use the entire scale. What I'm seeing is the entire musical scale, the notes, all of that. Use the entire scale. That's what this is referring to, because this Justice card talks about the individual points, the polarity, and this one is referring to each other point that is within that polarity. So it's really honing in on use the entire scale. Use the entire scale. Okay. So now we're kind of shifting into a new space, and you're Sagittarius, we're coming next with the Ten of Cups. And this is referring to, I'm seeing your music, whatever you're composing, as this little baby here. And you're here, like nurturing, and then we have you know, this feminine here. It's the Ten of Cups. This little baby, your music, it's coming through as like it would not have been created if these two elements, these two beings, hadn't have come together to create this third. It definitely has a collaboration sense to it, which is kind of coming up as well with the Three of Cups. Threes typically are, you know, it's usually the Three of Pentacles, but here there's a distinction between it being, it's coming through as a cup energy because there's a lot of heart and emotion that is being added into this, into the music, into the process. So this Ten of Cups here is referring to this element, these two that are working together. It's probably also why it's presenting as a cup energy, because cups also signify like the psychic realm, the psyche. It could even be referring to a more spiritual emphasis, which is what the High Priestess and the Hierophant are. So by perhaps utilizing the suggestions and adding them into the mix, the ones that you are receiving from your higher self, and perhaps even maybe like through me, or that Capricorn energy that was bringing you a little bit of inspiration, it's like utilizing that is going to help to create and grow your musical infant. It's like you're nurturing it. So feeding it different things. Okay. There are so many different elements to this. Just taking a peek at everything. There's so many different elements to this that it's really adding to the dynamics of your sound. Which is ultimately what's going to create a lot of interest in your music, especially with you delivering like little sound bites to the public, to the audience, to entice them. It's like as you add these new sounds, these new building blocks to each individual song or movement or composition, it's really increasing the interest. And it's also providing some type of like healing to the world. It's like a, I don't know why I'm seeing like, who is that? Who is that? Lennon? Is that Lennon? John Lennon? Is that his name? I don't know. The Beatles? Like like healing the world. I feel like that's a song. I don't know. But yeah, like it's really adding an element of healing the world type of thing. So we have that. So we're ending the reading off with this Knight of Pentacles. And what I'm seeing is this is you here looking back. So all of these cards, they're, you see how you are, it's like you're scanning over and you're looking over all of these suggestions. And what I'm loving here is that because you're presenting as the king, as the Knight of Pentacles, it's like you're taking each one of them, and it's referring to seed plantings, because you're in this field. It's like you have an entire field that is open to being like planted, if you will, right? You have the space, perhaps maybe even the time to be able to create this. And so as you take these suggestions, and they're acting as like, it's acting as like little seeds that you're going to be, that you will be planting. And of course, you know, eventually as they grow, as your little musical infant grows, it will you will come to a point where you're going to be harvesting, right? Harvesting that seed, which is talking about the final product or the final creation, the final song that will be released to the public. And because you have, it's coming through as like the time and the space to be able to create this, the way that you are making it is in a deliberate, it's coming through as deliberate. You're doing it very deliberately. And because of that, the sound is almost like perfected. Because this Knight of Pentacles, you know, if it was any other night, it might have gone a little bit too fast. And by moving too fast, a lot of elements like these suggestions would have been foregoed. But because you're presenting as this Knight of Pentacles and you're looking over all of these suggestions and you're seeing perhaps maybe how you can add them, it is slowing the process down just a little bit, but what's being pointed out here is that it's worth it. It would be worth it. There's also another message that's coming in here about like family, actually. It's referring to like being born into a musical family. So there's also a sense of that if you are one that has been born into a musical family, like your parents create music, or you know, even just playing instruments, it doesn't have to be showy, you know what I mean? It's referring to that they're kind of looking at your process, and there's a sense of pride in that what they planted for you when you were a small baby musical infant. It's like they're finally being able to see that their influence on you has produced something that's really remarkable. That was very cute. Came up right at the end. That's really cute. All right, Sagittarius, I think I'm going to let it go there. Um, Thank you very much for allowing me to read your energies, and I'll see you next time. Yeah, bye.